everybody, I'm Phillip Blume, and I want to talk to you today about 4 steps to capturing perfect color tones in your images. Hey guys, welcome. Color is such an important concept for photographers to master when it comes to lighting, but we generally stay stuck in a different arena when we begin as photographers. So a lot of us, as we learn off-camera light and how to light our photos, we learn that there are 4 main characteristics of light. And we rightfully kind of start with the first 3 because they're the simplest, right? We talk about light direction, light quality, light quantity, and that really does allow us to shape our light, to give story and direction to our images. And you can go a long way in your career just focusing on those 3 qualities. But that 4th quality, color, the color of your light, is so powerful. And when it comes time to entering print competitions, and Eileen and I have judged these for many, many years, and you should know that judges are specifically looking at that as well as they judge an image. Or you just want to go from a professional image maker to that next level, where you go from creating really good images to great images. I want to show you a few tools. We're going to look specifically today at the X-Rite Color Checker 2 Passport version 2. This is the newest and nicest version of the Passport with lots of great features. And we'll look at gels as well. We're using Magmod gels to make gelling our flashes very simple. But it all starts in camera. If you want to capture all the colors and tones and skin tones that are in the image in front of you, and maybe even change those creatively, it all starts with a perfect white balance. So let's look at the back of our camera. Generally when we're looking at white balance, we start right about here with an automatic white balance. It's one of the simplest automatic features on a camera. It works pretty well when you're shooting, running and gunning in natural light. But if you really want to have control over your image, you've got all these presets, you really want to use Kelvin. Kelvin is your manual feature for white balance. So how are we going to find out? We could kind of go into Kelvin and just look manually. We could scroll to a lower number to make the image cooler and just kind of go by eye until it looks right to us. And if I'm just guessing here, I would say, probably around, the number I have now is about 4,400 by eye. Maybe I can make it cooler than that, maybe about 4,000. And that would be our best guess using Kelvin. But there's a much more scientific way to do this. Even if you don't have a light meter, this is going to be your best bet, because on the post-production end, you're literally going to preserve tones and colors better, fuller and richer, that you can actually edit with if you do this right the first time. A lot of times we would do this by maybe putting our sensor. I would recommend changing your in-camera light meter to a spot meter. It's kind of by default going to be a matrix meter that measures the light in your whole screen, unless you change it to spot metering. So I would generally take this and just aim it at some highlight in the image, and you can see as I change the exposure, I can look at this histogram until it's right in the middle. And that's where I'm getting really a solid, perfect exposure. And now I know I have a balanced exposure there on the back of my backdrop. But then if I look at something like my little model here, and I try to measure for him, you can look at that histogram here and see that there's different tones, different materials, and that's giving me a really kind of a wacky histogram. The main highlights here are kind of going off-centered, so I'd have to change it, my exposure, to kind of balance it out for him. So that's why I'm going to need to use, instead of just any object I find, I need to use this white card that I know is the perfect texture and highlights. So I'm going to meter for this, and you can see it's really interesting. I let the light fall on it, and when I meter for it, instead of just a hump in the middle, it really is a broad spectrum of light coming off of this white card. And I'm going to move until that whole spectrum of light fell right in the middle there. And then I know I've got a great exposure. Once I have great exposure, that's step 1, then I can meter for perfect white balance. And so I'm going to do that with the gray card now. So here's how you do it in your camera. You're going to go to your white balance screen, and instead of Kelvin, although you can use that to tweak, I'm going to go down here to, it may look a little different in your camera. This is a Sony a7 III. I'm going to choose set. And when I click set, all I have to do now, my camera has a perfect exposure, is to line up that dot, just follow the instructions. And I'm going to put that dot right on the gray, and I'm going to click, let it do its work. Boom. Now, I had my white balance set for a nice warm 9500 Kelvin here before. My best guess, as you remember just a minute ago, my best guess was a 4400 Kelvin temperature if I was doing it by eye. But this says that 3500 is actually perfect white balance in this lighting condition. So in these conditions, I'm going to say yes, I'm going to enter that in, and now my camera is manually set for a perfect white balance. I don't have to change that again unless I change my lighting setup here. So that's great. The next step that I'm going to do before I start shooting in any condition, so if I'm here on the wedding day or at a family portrait session, I take that perfect exposure, step 1, I get a perfect white balance, step 2, and now I'm going to take a reference shot of this color card. There's a lot of cool tools here that you can use in post-processing later once you have this reference shot in Lightroom or Photoshop and other programs. But I'm going to start just by taking a reference picture of this top portion of colors, and it's a perfect, scientifically accurate sampling of all my color tones, and I'm taking that sample shot with perfect exposure and white balance. So it's really cool. X-Rite has a plugin in Lightroom. When I open this photo that I just took of my color card, I'm literally going to click on it, and it's going to automatically create a color profile. So just like Adobe RGB or different color profiles that your pictures are based upon, it will change to a custom color profile of all my images, and it's like magic. You literally apply that to your images you've imported, and you can see instead of just a bunch of green grass, all of a sudden it turns to various shades of green, and you can see all of these shades and subtleties that the processor wasn't even showing you before. We have a lot of red clay and dirt here in Georgia. You start seeing, instead of just a red dirt ground or a red rock, you start seeing tones and a gradation of reds from dark to light. And the pictures really come alive. It really looks like magic. You get the same quality in your skin tones as well. So you're kind of revitalizing and preserving all those skin tones. So now that I've got that, I can take a picture of anything I want. I can go ahead and start taking my pictures, and I've got perfect skin tones, perfect white balance on my subject. But let's say that I wanted to get a little more creative than that. So let's say I wanted to kind of make this look like a cool evening shoot in the middle of the day. Right now we've got perfect white balance for the light here, but I could actually go in here now, and I'm starting from a place of perfect white balance, and I can certainly open up and go to Kelvin now. I know that we want to start from a place of about 3,500. And if I go cooler than 3,500, so a lower number, a lower Kelvin makes it cooler, just until it looks nice and cool. So this is in the evening. And you know, I'll choose that, and then I'll probably even make my shot a little darker because, you know, in the evening the light's not so intense. And that's great, and I can take shots like this all day long, but now if I add a flash, so let's say that I want to really make my subject stand out and not just be the same brightness as the background. I want them to stand out, pop off the page. So I'm going to light them. Then I might bring a flash over here, and every flash, every LED, video light, anything you use has its own color cast. This is pretty well daylight balanced, and so it's probably going to look pretty blue, just like the window light and the video light that I have shining on me now. So it's going to look pretty blue, and my subject's skin is going to get pretty blue. And even if I try to edit that later, I'm not going to be able to get the full gamut of skin tones back. So what I want to do is correct that blueness with a gel. And if you think of cameras as having a Kelvin scale, a manual white balance, this is basically just white balance for your flash, right? There's no button for white balance on your flash, but you have gels. You have, essentially the ones used the most often are CTO, which simply means color temperature orange. Those are orange gels. and you have CTB, color temperature blue. And just like your white balance can get bluer or bluer, cooler, cooler, or oranger and oranger, warmer and warmer,